Thank you so much, Commissioner Bye, for being with us today. I am going to spotlight you now, and maybe you could just give us any updates that you have to start off.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for all you're doing on behalf of children and families. I can't think of a more challenging time that we've had, and I want to thank the Alliance for hosting this call, but also really thank them for their work advocating, and all of you who are part of the Alliance, advocating with the governor, advocating federally, meetings with the governor. Last week I was at a meeting with Senator Blumenthal, where the Alliance heard real life stories, where the Senator heard real life stories about the challenges that child care programs are dealing with. A lot of those challenges we've been talking about for months, but it's really crunch time now, because a lot of the fears we had about the challenges programs are facing with lower enrollments are coming to pass, and some of the business challenges are coming to pass. So I wanted to provide an update on a few items to help folks to start, but I want to save time for questions. Hopefully by going on, and I want to do a quick overview about testing, mask wearing, CDC's and school readiness funding, and quickly about Connecticut Cares for child care business as well. I'm mostly on my own today, so there will be some questions that I'll need to get back to you about, and we will do that. So the first thing is, when Governor Lamont was on, he said, we will make sure that testing is available for child care teachers. And since that day, we've been working with both the statewide incident command team and with the Office of the Governor to come up with that plan. We are very close. We sent a final version to DPH for final approval last night, but there have been a lot of steps to get here. So I feel like we're close enough that I can tell you now what the steps are for child care programs and providers. And I expect this is what will be in the guidance that will come to all providers with the links, et cetera, to testing sites. So let me just start when to get tested. Any child care or camp or after school staff member who experiences symptoms should contact their primary care provider, if they have one, to ask about testing. The reason we say this and we start with this is that if you have a primary care provider and you have concerns and you're getting tested, we want you linked to that primary care provider for help, for your treatment and help. Also, you should get tested if you've had any known exposure to someone with documented COVID-19, and you should quarantine for 14 days. Current guidance calls for testing of asymptomatic. So if you have no symptoms and you want to get tested, there's definitely guidance if you live in high-risk communities or congregate, if you live in high-risk congregate settings, that's a thing that you should do. So if you don't have any symptoms, but you live in a high-risk community, I believe those are I think it's Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. There are 4 or 5 cities that are considered high risk because of the population and because of some of the testing. Danbury, certainly, there is testing available. And then we have a whole list of how you can get a test. And I put that in the chat. There are more than 100 sites in the state that have free testing in case you don't have insurance, you don't have a primary care provider, but you feel like you need to get tested. I put that link in the chat, ct.gov/priority testing. You can also put in your zip code on 211. If you go to 211 and look at testing, COVID testing, if you put in your zip code, it will tell you all the different kinds of testing sites available. Also know that there are more than 100 community health centers across the state that can administer a test. They also may be taking new patients in the case that you need care and you don't have insurance. They'll do on-site health evaluations, and we have a link to that in the document. Now, I went down to a program in the southwest part of the state, and there were teachers who said to me, I just am worried because I'm around so many people and I want to get tested. So we have said that, and the governor has said that you can get tested if that's your situation. And that's where you can find these sites. You can go and get free testing at the sites where there will be links to the document, and you should be able to find that in your chat. If you or any member of your program does test positive, it's really important that you notify local health because they are tracking this and they're doing contact tracing. And we really want to have good information about what's happening in childcare. So I thank you for your advocacy on this. I know maybe my explanation made it seem very simple, and I know it's not totally simple, and it hasn't been totally simple getting approval to have asymptomatic childcare providers tested if they have concerns about themselves or their family's health. But the governor was really clear that he wanted us to be able to offer free testing for childcare providers who need it. And on this document, I'm looking at it. Once it's approved by DPH, it will be sent out to all programs in the state. I'm sure the Alliance will send it out. That's because of your advocacy that we're now even more clear about testing. You have helped, the Alliance has helped childcare providers across Connecticut, whether they're involved in the Alliance or not, to have access to this. And I know from talking to teachers down at Children's Day School that this was really important to them. They have a lot of stresses about the work they're doing, and they're men and women of all different ages. So thank you for your advocacy on that. I don't know how you guys want to run it. I guess I'll just run through my updates and then take questions as they come.
Yeah, I think that's the best.
Okay.
Post
the second thing I'm getting a lot of emails and questions about are rules around children wearing masks in preschools and infant and toddler room 2 years and up. That is because OEC sent out new guidance that came to us at the end of August from mid-August, I guess, from CDC and from the American Academy of Pediatrics about children outside of the home wearing masks. So we sent out that guidance, and since then we've been developing guidance, and we're hoping to have rules out by today, and I could tell you exactly what they are, but just know that we are working with SDE, with DPH, and we want to align our guidance so that the children, the workforce, and the families in all of these settings can count on a certain common guidance. We expect that out by the end of the week. There have been a lot of questions I've gotten about this. I've had emails saying, please assure, please require masks. I've had emails saying, please don't require masks. And those have come from parents, programs, children, family daycare centers. So we are looking at all of that. Just know that no matter what, once it comes out, that we are taking the developmental needs of young children into account in this policy guidance that we expect will be out. I was expecting it to be out now, but it's going to be a couple more days because we are trying to take into account the age of the children, the developmental levels, the ability for compliance, all those items that I've had emails about and concerns about. So I'm sure I'll answer more questions about that. And I'm sorry I don't have an answer today. I know there are many people who are anxious about this. But I am really grateful for the feedback we've received. Part of the feedback is why it's taking longer. I could have issued something a week ago from myself, but as we started to get more feedback, we wanted to be sure we incorporated that and we had supports in place as programs needed that going forward. So that's where we are at masks. I will answer questions about that. Finally, I've been getting questions. I had a text just before this meeting started around how OEC is paying school readiness and child development centers for this fiscal year from September till June, because we had special sort of special payment system for July and August. And The way the plan is, and again, we are always open to feedback. What we're trying to do is take into account the idea that programs have lower enrollments, that we have rules around 16 per classroom, and that programs have operating expenses, whether they have 2 classrooms open or 10 classrooms open, they have some common operating expenses. And some of this has been based on the way we've been advocating at the federal level for funds. So for school ready, and the other issue is I wanted to be sure we had similar systems for both CDCs and school readiness. And it's complicated because they're different programs. They have different, the way the regions are set out and the different ages, et cetera. But we were able to, and I really thank my staff, come up with a common way to pay, and that is to pay by classroom. And I think it's something that the Alliance and OEC and programs need to have a longer term conversation about, because as we look to provide more stability, paying by classroom versus paying by child could be one of our answers. Or we may do this and we say, no, this didn't work. But I think it's a chance, given the smaller class sizes, to see how this works. So we're going to pay by classroom. And as soon as there are 11 children in any classroom, we will consider it a full classroom and pay it as if it was 18 to 20, depending on what your usual size was. And if there are 1 to 10 children, we will pay it as a half a classroom. And that is very much tied to staffing needs, et cetera. But if, even with that adjustment, your program has not had enough capacity to count as full, we are providing a 25% operating enhancement, if you will. So whatever your program's operating dollars were as of last March, you will get 25% in addition to those classroom fees to help with operating expenses, understanding that you may have 2 fewer classrooms, but that doesn't mean your rent changes. And we, at the federal level, have been advocating for $50 billion because we've been trying to fill in for operating expenses. So we sort of pulled the 25% from that sort of thinking. And for the CDCs that have infant and toddlers, 1 to 4 children is half a classroom and 5 to 8 is a full classroom. And again, with the 25% enhancement up to the full allocation. So it's an attempt to still pay based on enrollment, but to build in a lot of flexibility, understanding that enrollments are lower. Now, nothing's perfect, and I'm happy to answer questions about this and our thinking, and also to hear the program impact. I will say that OPM is clear that, and as are we, that we are paying for enrollment, even if we're paying more per child, that we're paying for actual classrooms that are open and where children are being served. So those were the 3 updates. I guess the 4th is just the Connecticut Cares for Childcare Business. We might need a help from the Alliance just to let programs know that while this is open, it's open till I believe September 17th. Not as many programs have applied as we thought would. And we really want to get these funds out to programs that are opening. And some of that may be a function of some are just opening, and so they're just applying now. But even that said, we want to get these dollars to programs. So we want to make sure people are applying. I know it is taking a while for people to get paid. I think we have sent out well over half of the folks who've applied have been paid. It's more like 2/3, but it does take a while. We've never paid programs directly like this, and even after you apply, it takes a while for the comptroller to set you up as a vendor for the state. Once you're a vendor for the state, then you get the email from United Way where you're answering the questions to then have that lead to a payment to your program. It would be important for us to hear from those of you who've received the payments, how you're using them. Are they helping? This is really our attempt to help with maybe a month's operating expenses, extra expenses. We knew it was never enough to sustain you, but we're hoping it will sustain you. So
Is it
at least
possible?
even if for a month. So I'll stop there.
Is it possible that deadline will be extended?
Yeah, it is possible. There are some deadlines we have in terms of when we need to spend the money by. So I can definitely check with my team about extending that deadline. Bottom line is we want to get the money out to programs, and we want to get it out as quickly as we can. So I will ask them.
And this is the Connecticut Cares for Childcare Business Program.
Yeah, and supply grants. Yep. The Kickstart grants and supply grants. Yep.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions. Well, there's a million questions. So Mary Alice, I don't know if you're available to ask your question, but she had a question related to school readiness, which was sort of what you just spoke about.
Yep.
Mary Alice, you there? Check your language settings. Check English and then mute original audio. Okay, I'm gonna call that. I guess we're not gonna be able to get that to work. Oh, you hear her. What's that?
Explain some of the issue?
Well, I think this is a language setting issue, is my guess. A few people are hearing her. Are you hearing her, Commissioner?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I can hear in the Spanish line.
Okay.
Oh, you can
Mary,
translate, Ava.
yeah, Mary, I can hear her in the Spanish line. Mary, if you can hear us, then you definitely are stuck in the Spanish audio. You got to try switching over again.
Okay, click interpretation, English, and then mute original audio. And we'll just give it one more second. And if you can join us, that'd be great.
She said she already did it twice, and she asked if we can hear her. On the main line, we can't hear her. Maybe if the commissioner switched over or we switched over to the original audio, we can hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, she's there. Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Commissioner, for allowing us to ask you these questions. As you well know, that I have been doing school readiness since 1998. I think I'm one of the longest standing school readiness liaisons. So I know all the history of school readiness, and I know where we were and where we are now. And to say we're in a crisis, and to hear you say we're in a crisis, I agree wholeheartedly. Our programs are struggling. Now, I think it's wonderful that you want to pay by classroom, but that monthly form has to be adjusted to make sure that if you're saying 11 plus equals a classroom, that's what they get paid for a classroom. You cannot divide it by 20. That makes no sense. You don't even allow 20 children in a classroom, but you're determining what a classroom is by dividing it by 20. You should be dividing it by 11. I have reached out to Cheryl. I have said this is incorrect. This is not right. This is not fair. We are putting our programs in dire straits right now. We really are.
I just want to understand. I just want to understand the problem. So what we're trying to do is once you have 11 children, you get paid as if you have 20.
No, you don't. Because the monthly form, you put down how many children you are. I'm saying there's an issue with the sample monthly form, that it is incorrect. You can't divide the amount of children by 20. You have to divide it by 11. If you're saying a classroom is 11, you cannot divide it by 20 and say this is how you're going to be paid. Now, if you have only one classroom, okay, you'll get your full amount. If you have larger programs like Bristol, you do not.
Oh,
and
I
that
see what you're
20
saying.
and that 25% doesn't even make it up to being paid. It makes no sense.
Well, I think I understand the problem now. Okay, so there are programs that have 2 to 3 school readiness children across 15 classrooms. And so what we're trying to say is when you have 11, that's a classroom. Now, then you can, that counts as a classroom. But if then, because of the way school readiness is structured, it's like once you have 20 children, then you have a full classroom and then you start again. But what you're saying is that you don't think 20 is the right number to use.
No, I have a program that is all school readiness.
Yep.
Okay. So they have, you know, they're building their classrooms at this point. They have more than an 11 in each program, but when you add that up and divide it by 20, you're not paying them for those classrooms.
Yeah, so
Right.
the problem
What
is,
we don't, well, what I'm trying to avoid, and maybe you can help me figure this out. We don't want programs to open 10 classrooms of 11. We would rather them open than whatever, X classrooms of 16, if that makes sense. So I think that's what we're trying to avoid.
I understand that. And I don't believe that we're trying to do that. And in fact, I'm going to say publicly, we had our first incident yesterday of a parent testing for COVID. Okay, so it's pretty scary. And I'm saying to you, we would like to keep our classrooms at a smaller size. Our programs did open in June and they have been doing wonderfully.
Right.
And they were at 10 and now they're starting to increase to a larger amount. But you have to take it in increments. You know, we have to be realistic about this. We really, truly do not want to place these programs in jeopardy of losing families, losing their reputation. And quite honestly, when you talk to the directors, what they're saying is they're making life and death decisions here that I don't think people understand. And they're trying to do the best they can, but this is a pandemic and they are also a business that needs to survive. And that's what we're trying to do. So I did reach out to Cheryl and Cheryl basically said to me, this is how it is. We're not changing it. Okay. And you could check back and I could send you the email and I'm not trying to throw Cheryl under the bus.
No,
okay.
Look, hey, Cheryl is implementing what the office decided. What you're saying is
It's
you
not
have
fair.
concerns about what the office has decided. These were very long conversations to try to figure out how to pay programs who are dealing with lower enrollment while at the same time pay for children who are enrolled to, you know, to make sure there's childcare available. So I'm happy to take this concern back and have a conversation with the early childhood team about this. I hear what you're saying and I hear your concern.
Thank you so much, Mary Alice. I appreciate that. I'm moving on from this just because we have so much to cover today. But thank you for that information. And the next follow-up I'll have is, that is for school readiness and CDC. Is there any equivalent for family providers?
Well, family CDCs and school readiness are state-funded slots. We pay for slots in center-based care. For those of you who've been involved in systems reform conversations, we want to think about early childhood spaces more broadly as a state. But since for 50 years, we've had CDCs, and for 30 some years, we've had school readiness, where the state pays for spaces in centers with slots. So that is not for family childcare. What we've had out there for family childcare are increased investments in staff family childcare networks, increased and the Kickstart grants and the supply grants, which proportionally are at a higher rate. Family childcare homes are in the same boat as 75% of centers in the state that have no state-funded spaces or no state-funded classrooms. So those private providers are all in the same boat. So I know I took a lot of time with CDC and school readiness because there are just a lot of questions there, but that's, you know, about 25 to 30% of spaces in the state. Most of you are in the same boat.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that is really popping up a lot is the masks.
Mhm.
I guess the first question is mask guidance going to, do you expect that it will be a mask mandate for any certain ages, or will it just be kind of clarifying guidance for centers to make their own policies? And so one of the things to consider before you answer that, I guess, is there is some worry that this kind of creates a health race to the bottom, where if a center has a strong policy that parents don't want to go with, then they leave and go to another center that doesn't have a strong policy, and that then there's a sort of health versus business kind of incentivization that could happen, and that's a worry when we're trying to both keep businesses afloat and deal with. And so I don't know that I'm advocating for a position here. I think that people just really need to know, will there be a mandate? Or is this just going to be strong guidance?
Well, I appreciate the question, and you have exactly the challenges in front of us. I'd say I have strong concerns about what could happen in a program that said, it's up to you, parents. And then some parents are upset that other parents won't have their kids wear masks, and some teachers are upset with parents because some parents send their kids with masks and others don't. I think without clear guidance, it leaves a lot of people in limbo and could lead to a lot of unrest among families and providers. So what I can say is we have been following CDC guidance throughout this pandemic, and CDC guidance has changed recently. And so we are taking that change very seriously. I wish I could say at this moment exactly what it is. I do anticipate a strong policy that will both support programs, but also support young children's developmental levels. So that's what I can say on this call. I hope to be able to offer more clarity, certainly by the end of the week for programs. I'll also say I visited a program in Greenwich about a week and a half ago, and the children were wearing masks without a problem. That doesn't mean it's not a problem for all children, and it won't be a problem for all children. So, it won't be a problem for some children. So I think just know that the guidance when it comes out will be aligned with the SDE and will take into account that young children are different than older children. That's what I feel like I can say.
Can I just ask a follow-up quickly? Because I've heard this from a few people, Commissioner, and that's a really good explanation for now, I think. However, I think there's concern about licensing and how if they're having trouble with kids, it's like a build-up, step program sometimes in getting.
Exactly, Liz. I'm so glad you're asking that, because there is concern with licensors, and they're out doing inspections now, pretty much looking at COVID, making sure people are reducing the risk of any disease transmission now. And I went out on a licensing visit and was so impressed with what programs are doing related to keeping kids and families safe. But I'm glad you asked that. I think that's what I'm sort of trying to say is any policy that we put in place will have an understanding of young children and an understanding and an expectation that there would be compliance issues as for children of younger ages. And I think it's really important you said that, even for anyone from OEC on the call, that has to be a part of any policy, is understanding that. We are, those of you listening, and I know there's anxiety on both sides. I literally have emails coming with high anxiety on both sides of this equation. And I've said this on the call, none of us want to be in this position. We're in this position because there's a pandemic, and we're all doing our best in that pandemic. And often the choices are what's difficult and what's less difficult, and what's more important and what's less important. And it's all important. I think the business survival of childcare is on all of our minds. And so many people on this call have been doing great work advocating. So that's also a big consideration. So it's all important, but it's complicated and it's a pandemic. So
Yes, of course. And then the request that the mask policy will also clarify inside versus outside, and then distance requirements and
absolutely. All of that's important, and as are materials to be able to share with families and teachers. And this is a complicated thing. And so that's why it's taking so long.
Yeah, I think also with that, one of the comments, just so that I say it and it's heard, was that if it's a ding for licensure for any reason, it's a health and safety issue, which can really impair and hurt the reputation of a center.
Absolutely. Agreed. Yep. And we don't want to do that.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So there's requests for OEC providing child-sized disposable masks. You know, there's a lot of other stuff. I'm going to forward all of this on to you. There's a ton of comments and questions about mask guidance. So I'll forward this today to you so that as you are preparing whatever you plan to come out with, hopefully later this week, you will have heard everyone's comments. So folks,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Comments that you want, this is your chance. Put them in the Q&A and I will forward them all along today. English or Spanish. Do you have someone who translates if we send them to you, the Spanish?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have plenty of people who translate.
So you can send them in English or in Spanish. Either one is fine. Okay, so we're going to move on from that because we need to. So delays in Kickstarter funds. So there's a lot of questions coming through on that. There's also questions about, let's see, if people had application issues, can they still apply? Some folks have said they applied a month ago and haven't heard back yet. So I guess, Meryl, was there any clarifying information on that you wanted to add?
I had people saying, you know, I was told it was going to be 21 days. It's 45 days now. What's going on? How do I, you know, figure out where things are?
I'm just looking to see if I have an update in my email. I get regular updates. What I can say is that I apologize for the delays. Again, I know these are meeting payroll. These are critical for you to pay the people who've been doing the work. And we did take our time launching this to try to have the technology in better shape, and it is in better shape. It's still not good enough. And because of the number of applications that came in, we sort of overwhelmed the comptroller's office, so it has taken a while to get some of those back. I can tell you that the Connecticut Cares for Frontline Workers and Connecticut Cares for Childcare payments, we basically last week said, let's please get these problem cases out of the queue so we can totally focus on Connecticut Cares for Childcare business. So we did that, getting a lot of those final payments out for people who'd had problems with their W-9s and people who had trouble getting supplier IDs from the comptrollers. So we are working as quickly as we can to get individual checks out. And I'm sorry, I can tell you that people are working late into the night to try to expedite approvals and move things along. And
what is
they'll get there soon.
Yep. Email or phone number for folks to try if they are not getting results?
United Way has been helping us on help desk, but I'm going to, I don't know if Deb Fliss is on the line. Would you have to free her up to speak?
Yeah, Deb, you're welcome to join us.
So Deb, I know that there's, I answer these ones, I forward them along, and but I know there's a best place for people to reach out, and I know United Way is helping. But Deb, what's the best way for people to get answers if their payments have been delayed?
Wait, hold on, where is she? Deb, there you are. You should be able to speak, Deb. I'm not hearing you though. Deb, you want to just double check your language settings? Click interpretation, choose English, then click again.
I can hear her. And this
Yep.
is Maggie. I can hear her.
Right, so I don't hear you, so choose mute original
All
audio.
right. How's that, Izzy?
Great, we got you.
Okay, good. Yeah, when you promoted me to a panelist, it changed my settings.
Yes.
Okay, so people should email kickstart@ctunitedway.org. And that is how their questions will get in the queue to be answered. The work group will work through all of those inquiries. Folks need to know that once your question comes in, it gets triaged to the appropriate organization, because part of the work is done on the OEC side and part of it is done on the United Way side. And then it gets processed for a solution. Then the solution gets implemented. Then the request goes to the Office of the Comptroller for the supplier ID, which is what we need to move the process forward. So there are many steps. For some people, it has taken longer than the 21 days. Beth just outlined the solutions that we've implemented to that. And as of this week, Help Desk is moving to a complete focus on Kickstart and supply subsidies. They had also been managing the frontline worker and childcare questions. And so those things are now behind us, and we're moving completely toward the Kickstart and supply questions to move folks through that process.
Deb, while we've got you, Deb, I had a number at the end of last week. I just don't have it for this call about how many payments had been made
Oh,
and how
yeah.
many suppliers had been approved.
It is nearly 1,000 payments that have been made and almost 1,400 providers who have applied. And again, that is data from the end of last week. I don't have new numbers yet for this week. And then I guess the other thing I want to say about that is the deadline is September 19th, but it is very important that folks who are eligible should apply and get in that system right now. And remember that eligibility is providers are open or about to open within 2 weeks. So that's the first criteria that folks should be using to get themselves in the system. And we really need people who want that subsidy to apply and go through that process.
Deb, can you also tell me if people are having issues with the CT Cares, who do they contact?
Izzy, tell me which CT Cares
For child
you mean.
care business, I guess. I'm guessing it's CT Cares for child care business is my guess.
Yeah, so all of these are in the CT Cares for Childcare Businesses hopper, the Kickstart and the supply subsidy. And the email for those questions is kickstart@ctunitedway.org.
Great. Okay, that's helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And people expressing gratitude for your many prompt responses to questions throughout this pandemic.
We're trying. We're trying.
All right, thanks so much. And thank you so much. All right, I'm going back to you, Commissioner. So let's see, we've got Kickstarter.
I have a couple of things that.
One question about the supplier ID. Some of you say you're still waiting for, once you just have to apply by that date. If you're in the system, you will be paid.
Okay, so one quick question here. Last week, maybe the week before, the governor had made some comments about the necessity of subsidizing parents during a work period, a get back to work period. And I know the state has the Connecticut Back to Work program, or whatever that thing's called. Any movement on the idea of Care for Kids or some other kind of subsidy expansion or inclusion? I know there's a little bit now, but for parents as they are trying to re-enter the workforce?
Yes, we are working with OPM on a couple of things related to that, and the governor expressed his support for workforce, and I think some of that is a policy decision that has to be made. But I will say that there was about 15 million in CARES in CRF dollars for workforce development, and about 5 million of that was set aside for childcare. So OEC is working with the workforce boards to identify training programs where people need childcare. And as we locate those and where their participants live, we will be purchasing family childcare spaces and center-based spaces as part of that workforce project. So parents have a place, you'll get a list. Here's where we've purchased spaces, as both a way to help childcare in this difficult time and to have easily accessible childcare for parents in workforce training. This is just getting off the ground now. And if programs live in the region or area where the workforce boards are telling us that these exist, we will be looking to add childcare spaces in that region or zip code around. You know, let's just say a hospital had a cohort of people going in to be techs in the hospital. We would look for a center near that hospital, near that training program, and purchase spaces for people who are enrolled in that program. They may be used or not used, much like Project 26, but that is happening. And then we are having a policy discussion with the governor's office around workforce training and childcare as well. And finally, we're meeting with OPM to talk about childcare subsidy dollars not being eaten up by the school age care switches that are going on. So as families move from school afternoon care to full day care because their town might not have schools open, we're concerned about that reducing the amount of Care for Kids dollars left for the birth to 5 population. So we are documenting those and working with OPM to see if we can use some CRF funds to pay for those families. We also, with the governor extending his order, the emergency powers, we are able to continue some of the Care for Kids policies that were in place for families who've been laid off, are unemployed and looking for jobs. So there are a few things at work.
Great. Thank you. Also,
Izzy, about Kickstart, just before we go on, it's a simple one, I think. And it's particular, but there might be other people in the same position. This one person was open in January, but wasn't licensed till February. But she's staying open, and it is a care center that's open. I think it's a family child care person. But she's not eligible for Kickstart because she wasn't open in she wasn't licensed in January. Is that correct?
I think we were looking for programs that have been open, and we use January as a date. I think she can write into that Kickstart helpline, and we will discuss that. Happily.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so there are a million questions about school-aged kids. And I know you talked about that with Care for Kids. So there's questions along the lines of, you know, if children were supposed to be graduating preschool going into kindergarten, but parents are opting for remote learning, can those children stay on Care for Kids so that they can continue to receive care maybe in the center they were previously in, do their work? Questions about if children are doing virtual, what does the ratio look like? Is it the 6+3 in a family center? How does this affect substitute teachers? So there's a lot of questions about that. I don't know if there's anything you can, if any of that sparks you to start with, and then I can ask follow-ups.
Well, the school age questions are obviously really challenging. And certainly it's the hope of the governor and us and probably most parents and teachers in Connecticut that schools reopen when the positivity rate is low. The guidance from the State Department of Ed and Department of Public Health is, as the state's positivity rate is below 1%, schools, it makes sense for schools to open. If it goes above 1%, it makes sense for hybrid. And I think there's a third criteria for when it's totally remote, that the public health data would guide what's happening. The fact that many schools are not open, even in regions where positivity is very low, is leading to a lot of challenges for families because schools are the biggest provider of childcare. And it leads to a lot of questions and concerns in our field. I met with some providers who are really worried that there's a lot of illegal childcare popping up when they've been following the rules and doing the work. And so on that front, we're working with the governor's office to get clear guidance out to the community about what constitutes legal and illegal childcare, And if there need to be any of the adaptations to that, given totally voluntary parent supports, we're looking at that, because that's a big concern, is programs have not been able to get families, and now there's illegal childcare popping up. So we have talked to the governor's office about this and asked them to be sensitive to the fact that childcare programs are hurting. Many of them have offered to open school-age programs for communities, but parents say, we don't have the $1,000 to spend per month to send the children. And there are a lot of difficult decisions that parents have, and a lot of difficult decisions that programs have right now because schools aren't open. So the whole
I'm guessing you all have the commissioner frozen as well. Commissioner, if you can hear us, there you are. Great. You had froze for a second.
Okay. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, so I'm just saying we're really concerned about protecting.
You're
I'm going to
frozen.
I'm going to use this second to remind everyone that if you have questions or comments that you want to go to OEC, please put them in the Q&A. Anything that has been put in the chat will not be forwarded on. So go back and copy and paste and put whatever you want passed on into the Q&A, please. That is where we will forward that on. And
I'm going to try to stop my video. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great.
Sorry. So anyway, we're trying to be clear that SDE and the governor's office are clear about what constitutes illegal childcare, and working on, maybe 1 or 2 reasonable accommodations, but really working to push communities to work with local nonprofits and childcare programs to help. And I know that Miguel and I are meeting with CCM and the superintendents to talk about how we can help communities help their families with childcare. So every community is different. So this is really a community-based challenge that we're seeing, but it does impact our field.
Quick question. This is a clarification from a much earlier question, but I think it's helpful for folks. For family childcare, I guess we're asking if the free testing for providers, does providers, will that include family childcare?
Absolutely.
Substitutes. And so like assistants, what about family members of the people who run a family childcare?
Well, if you listen to the whole testing guidance, I mean, the idea is that people who are symptomatic should get tested. That said, there are asymptomatic childcare providers who have concerns about their health, and now there's a path for them. I do not think that extends to family members, but in the priority communities, there's free testing available. And if you follow the link, many of those are to community-based health centers who have free testing available for anyone. So I think there are resources here that can help with family members, but the governor's goal was to support childcare providers, meaning family childcare and center-based providers, with options for free testing.
Okay, real quick, this is a funny question too, but I think important. If a center has been closed for more than 180 days, does all staff need to be fingerprinted again?
The center has been closed for...
No, that's 5 years.
5 years. Great. Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Meryl.
Thank you.
See, I have one more thing that I just want to make sure gets asked, because I had promised somebody I would ask it. And I know that the commissioner needs to go soon. And this is a larger issue, Commissioner. However, it's about the $15 an hour increases that are being incrementally put on. And I think with the way we are now, first of all, I believe we need to go ahead with it. That's just my own personal opinion. However, I know a lot of people are really stressing about it because their margins are so short right now. I think that it begs the question of the federal money that we'll need, which is really not you know, I know you're working on that behind the scenes as well, but can you just speak to that? Even just giving a sense of understanding that you guys are aware of those issues
Yeah,
coming up.
it's a huge problem. I've run childcare programs. There's no margin. Usually you're fundraising to make up for the loss. That's what many programs are doing. It's very hard to make it work and to pay a fair wage. I know every director wants to pay their providers a living wage, and there are structures in our culture that make this really difficult. It's why many of you have been on some of the input calls we've had related to systems reform. We cannot have structural stability and high quality care until we address the need for high quality staff, which requires a living wage, which we don't have now. I understand the fears. I'm sure that the change that just happened at $12 an hour is a big strain on programs. So again, I think everybody wants to do the right thing. There's not enough funding in the system right now. And we're working closely both federally and at the state level to bring this to fore and to let the Governor's Workforce Council know, you know, the irony is incredible. Like the Governor's Workforce Council is doing this work on what do we need to get people back to work and get them to training, and childcare comes up, childcare and transportation. And we've been saying this for years. But then they only want to pay for job training for jobs that help advance people up the economic ladder. So built into these workforce systems childcare is not built in. I mean, so we've been working hard at OEC also to say we need funds for training childcare providers too. But in every state, the workforce programs are trying to get people into high value jobs where people can make a living and cover their costs and not be dependent on Husky and SNAP and other items. But probably like many of you, when I worked in childcare, I always needed a second job to meet just basic living, to put gas in my car and to feed the children. Just like programs are fundraising to subsidize businesses and parents, so are childcare workers working second jobs to subsidize parents and businesses. And so we're working hard to get that message across, and the Alliance has been doing that. But it's going to take all of us. And sadly, this pandemic is so hard that one of the good outcomes is the recognition of how important childcare is. Now, again, it's got to move from talking about how important it is to paying for how important it is. But we want to partner with you on strategies to bring a living wage and to bring the full cost of quality to fore as we move forward with rebuilding after this pandemic.
Okay, just fit a few more quick.
Okay.
One thing is that there was a clarity that it's 5 years for fingerprints if you're working, but if you're not working, it's 180 days. So I guess it's a request the requirement be waived due to COVID. So you don't need to respond. It's just wanted.
Well, just know that we've just restarted the fingerprint requirement and have our folks in the office and are moving that along. With the Connecticut Cares for Business funds, we're offering to pay for it. So I think that helps a lot. I don't know, that won't continue forever, but hopefully it helps you all during the pandemic to make sure your staff have appropriate background checks.
So ratios for home daycares, they were able to have 9 full-timers in the summer. Will that continue? And also, do you expect the 16 per classroom? Is that confirmed? What are the ratio? You have confirmation?
Yeah. The class size right now is 16, maximum of 16. So that's confirmed. And the second question was what, Izzy? I'm sorry.
It was family daycares childcares were allowed to have 9 over the summer.
Yes, the goal is now that the governor's emergency powers have been extended to allow camps to operate under their camp license for school age and to allow family childcare homes to have school age children for longer periods for the school day when schools are closed or they're hybrid learning. I'm not positive if that, I know I've reviewed that memo one final time coming out, making sure that's clear. I'm not positive if that's made it out to the field. I know the group size of 16 is out.
Okay.
But I know, I think that's memo 30 that's coming out to clarify that. So if that's not out today, that'll be out very soon. When it gets to me for final approval, that means it's coming out. But yes, because the governor extended his powers, we're going to extend those.
Great. And the final two things we wanted to cover, if we have 1 minute to do it. One is that there is a shortage now of infants and toddlers. And so empty infant toddler classrooms. And so a lot of concerns around that. Meryl can go into that a little bit more. And then also a lot of questions around the deployment of the Department of Public Health response team. No one understands how that would work. If they had to be deployed to a provider, what would that look like?
Yes, I was on that call last week with the public DPH and the governor's office planning that. So I do have some information about that. So local health is who you reach out to if there's a problem. And then they do the contact tracing. They also notify the State Department of Public Health. If there was a problem, like there was in Danbury, we had a spike in Danbury in cases, then the state deploys the testing team, the communications team. You know, I know at OEC, we deployed additional communication resources around early childhood there. The team would then go to that space. We have not had, maybe, I always hate to speak because, you know, the data is not exact, but we do not have many cases at all of transmission in childcare because providers have been doing a super job with all these preventative measures. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened ever, but very few cases. But none of us should think that can't happen. That could happen. If a childcare center was a center of a number of cases, you would have the Department of Public Health come in along with your local health department and sort of get everyone tested and make sure the communication is out there and the contact tracing is happening. I can assure you that, and probably if you follow the news, you know this, that when there is a series of cases in a single community or with a nexus at a farm or a nursing home or a hospital or a church, a full team will come and support. So that's how it works. But it all starts with your relationship with your local Department of Health, and so those relationships are important to establish. I think. You're muted, Izzy.
Meryl, did you have? There was
just on
Meryl,
yeah. On infants and toddlers, I'm hearing all over the place that programs are having trouble filling their infant toddler rooms. And it is both parent fear and the large number of parents who are unemployed, who now either don't need care or even couldn't afford care if they were trying to get back into the, find a new job. And the sort of, for a parent who's lost a job, who was not on Care for Kids before losing the job, they now are trying to find work, care for an infant, and we at the same time have infant toddler slots empty in funded programs. And I'm just wondering, is there a way that we can work on trying to make some modifications to
Yeah, Meryl, I think it might be worthwhile if you could get a few of those providers together and we think about a strategy, because we don't have enough infant toddler infrastructure at all, and we can't afford to lose the infrastructure we have. And we knew the programs were losing money on those spaces even before they had fewer kids enrolled. So I think we might need a specific infant toddler strategy, sort of like we're working on school age strategy with SDE. But the infant toddler strategy I think is an OEC sort of alone
Okay.
with three, 3 to 5 providers that are dealing with this to strategize some potential solutions between now and the end of the year.
Okay, we'll do that.
All
I
right.
do want to remind, I just want to step in on this subject really quickly, that I do want to remind any provider on the line that parents who are on the Care for Kids program and lost their job at any point, be it the pandemic or something else, they have a 3-month window to still receive care through Care for Kids without being employed while they're looking for employment.
Yep, thank you.
Question to clarify on that. Was there any, during the time when the whole state was shut down pretty much, in that March to July, was that 90-day clock ticking? Or was it?
Well, we definitely made some exceptions for parents who lost their job in the pandemic, that they were able to continue to receive Care for Kids even if they were out of work. I imagine even if that 90 days expired between March and July, they would have been carried because of the rule about not bumping people off who had just lost their jobs. I will follow up on that too, just to, that might be something that it would be helpful if we issued guidance about, even just a general memo about Care for Kids and what the rules are now, that we were all in this terrible space while we waited to see if the state of emergency was going to be extended because we didn't know what power we had. Now we know we have the power to make some changes to Care for Kids. We also have a very anxious budget office because we don't know what the state budget's going to look like. But we can look at that for sure and get some guidance out to folks about what the rules are around Care for Kids, to family childcare homes and to center-based programs.
Great.
So they can guide parents.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner, I know
All right.
so I'm letting you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all you're doing, and keep the communication coming. It really is helpful.
If there's anyone from the Office of Early Childhood who can stay for one more minute, there's just a couple of technical questions that people may be able to answer about upcoming webinars and things like that. So I don't know if that's possible. Maggie, I don't know if you're available at all to do that. But there was a question that came in right at the beginning that was about a webinar that OEC is having on 9/15, maybe about a family childcare RFP. Is that right? And if there's more information that can be spread about that?
Yes, so Izzy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that is our home visiting RFP, and that is the bidders conference. And that is open to anyone who wants to participate and hear more about the RFP. That will be due, I believe, is December 1st.
Okay, and so where will people find the information on how to get to that?
It is posted on our website. Actually, it's on our homepage, and there's a call out box with the RFP.
All right, I will grab it right now.
I'll make sure that if the bidders conference is not there, we can add that as well.
That's great. Okay, so that is great. Thank you. And I actually think that was it. I just wanted to make sure I got that one answered because it did come in right at the absolute beginning. So thank you so much, Maggie.
That is not a problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry I was so late in getting to you and getting on.
Oh, you're great. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. All right, Meryl, Liz, Ava, do you guys have any other updates? And actually, before I go to those, let me just remind everyone that before we end this call, if you have comments or questions that you want sent to Office of Early Childhood, I mean, you can try to put in, if it's a very specific thing, you can try to put your contact information. I saw that some people did do that. I cannot tell you that they will get back to you though. So this is information I'm sending to them so that it informs how OEC makes decisions right now. So they know what's on your mind. There's some places where they thought it was working one way, but actually in the field, it's working a different way. And so the information that you share and provide is critical to helping them make the best decisions for our community. So please put your questions and comments into the Q&A, but please do not put them into the chat. They will not get forwarded along. The chat is a great place for you all to share information with each other, but it's very hard for me to monitor and to pull out the questions after the fact. The Q&A is easy to make a report out of, and I send it on typically anonymous, just so you know. So you can also put yourself in as anonymous, but I do also send them in all of the questions listed, but anonymously, so that it's not, I know that makes some folks feel more comfortable. Meryl, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Maggie, there's a question about a individual family child care provider who had applied for the Essential Workers Program back in May, and talked to OEC about a small issue with their account and told it that had been resolved, and is still waiting 2 months later and is wondering, you know, the program's closed. Am I ever going to get paid for those 3 kids that I took care of? How do we?
Just with issues like that, when there's such a delay, just email me, and then I get them often, and then I'll send them to the internal people, and we'll get a resolution on that. We have a couple people who are working on that program. We apologize for that delay. So we really am sorry about that, but we'll make sure that it gets resolved.
Okay.
Federal too. Did you want to?
Do you want me to do that, or do you want to do that?
I can do it quickly if that's okay.
And then I'll do census.
Oh, good. So the federal update, I think, as I was speaking to the commissioner about the $15 an hour and costs going up, and we all want to be able to support our teachers, and there's no money. The part of the reason I brought it up is because everything in DC is stalled in a terrible way. And nothing much is really happening with our $50 billion or with anything. There's a skinny bill that I guess the Senate Republicans are trying to pass through, maybe even today, which may or may not have some money for childcare in it. A lot of the work that everyone has been doing around the country has given them pause, and they're adding some money in possibly, but it might not be enough. We're going to really have to keep pushing for the $50 billion. And what the national advocates are asking is that they know it's really hard for us to say, it's this week, this week they're going to decide. What they've decided is just 1 day a week, we're going to have a day of action. It might be a tweet storm one day. It might be posting something on Facebook and tagging people another day, or it might be writing letters again, or calling, or just writing an email. But we're going to come up with simple things that you can do. It will be once a week, probably Wednesdays, Meryl?
Yeah, I think so, but I was waiting for some information about that from the national advocates.
Yeah, so but we'll keep you all informed through the listserv. So please watch. We have to keep pushing. It's the only way right now we can keep afloat, and the only avenue right now going forward, except for voting.
Okay.
Okay. Ava, do you have any updates? Or Meryl, did you have another? Sorry.
I got nothing.
Okay, I have one about, so the census is supposed to end as of the end of September. And we are very concerned about an undercount of kids. There are some free tools available if you would like to use them in your childcare program. The We Count book people, WeCountKids.org has a virtual pajama party storytelling thing about the census that I'm trying to pull up and maybe be able to share. I don't know if I can or not, but my computer's being very slow. We also, Cause and the Alliance have some funds to help people who are trying to do census events to try and get the word out that we have less than a month to complete the census. If you are interested in putting on that sort of an event. We have been helping people with things like renting an ice cream truck or doing something to help create a draw for your event. So just shoot us an email. I'm at Merrill@earlychildhoodalliance.com. Liz is at efrazier@cause.org.
And you two, please put those into the chat. You
Sure.
can type chat.
Chat.
Okay. And also, I'd like to say one more thing, which is that I mean, we've got 160 questions in the Q&A today. Some of those are comments, obviously, but it is very hard for me to ask every question. I know it is disappointing when you put your question in and it isn't answered. And I want to apologize to everyone that we just can't possibly do that. I want you to know that I am going through it and I am asking the questions that seem to be repeated over and over for the most part, or ones that seem like they're going to be an issue for more people. So apologies if everything isn't being asked again, and know that we are forwarding it on, know that OEC does look at it and that it helps them to know kind of which direction to take when they're making decisions. But I just wanted to say that I feel badly that I can't get to everything. Meryl, Liz, Ava, anything else?
No, but as far as the census, I think Norwalk is doing some activities. Bridgeport is doing some activities that we're helping to sponsor. And if you want us to connect you with people who are doing activities, that's a good way. But early childhood people, I mean, really, it's the best way to connect. Even with the folks that are not coming but call you, just to remind everyone that it's really important that we count all the children in the census. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we've done it. Thank you to everyone who was here. Let's see, today is Wednesday, so we will see you all back on Monday. I don't believe we yet have a guest for Monday, so stay tuned, and we'll let you know as soon as we have one. I hope you all have a great week. And
I'll also just throw out, if you have a topic that you think, there's a speaker that you could get us or help us get that would have broad appeal, please shoot us an email and let us know who you're thinking about.
This is Maggie. I just want to thank you so much for these Zoom meetings and the willingness to invite Commissioner Bye so that she can communicate broadly with the field. Just thank you for all of your efforts.
Thank you, guys. We're so happy that we all are working together.
yeah, and especially to all of the 350 people who were here today, because it's not that easy to join these calls for folks. So we're really appreciative of everyone who's here. So, all right, great. Thanks everybody, and have a great day.
Okay.